So President Obama made a big speech on education this week. Here to talk about it, Russ Whitehurst, who is the Chief of Education Policy at Brookings. Before that, he was at the Department of Education. And Jonathan Martin of Politico. Russ, first, controversial speech, really, when you stop and think about what the president said. He came out for, of all things, merit pay, which a lot of people are for, but most of the teachers' unions are against.
That's right. I think the National Education Association must have lost a little sleep over that speech, so the response has been muted so far. He also strongly endorsed charter schools, which are radical in a way as well. So he hit a lot of issues that I think are interesting and important. Certainly good to have a president using the bully pulpit to advance education if you're interested in education reform.
What can the president really do? Because most education is at the local level, is funded by local taxes and so forth.
The president and Secretary of Education have a tremendous amount of money to dole out under the stimulus bill, and portions of that are at the Secretary of Education's discretion. So he can use that lever to move education forward if he wishes to, if he does
Jonathan, what about the politics of all this?
Well, I was really struck by some of his rhetoric, Bob. The fact is this is a Democratic president up there giving his first education speech and talking about not standing for failing teachers being in schools. The teachers' unions provide key foot soldiers and money to Democratic candidates up and down the ballot. I think in 2004, 1 of every 10 delegates to the Democratic convention was a member of a teachers' union. So it was striking. But there was some good groundwork laid by the White House. My reporting turned up that the AFT and the NEA had both gotten phone calls from the White House in advance, giving them a heads up as to, hey, this is coming, this is what he's going to say. So they kind of knew what was going to happen, but his language was far more confrontational on the issue than it was during the course of the campaign, where he was always more muted as far as talking about teachers.
Were you surprised, Russ?
I was surprised, particularly by the rhetoric. You may remember that he was booed at the NEA convention when he mentioned merit pay. And yet there was really no equivocation on that issue in his speech this week.
Why would teachers be against merit pay?
Well, it's an interesting question because in the rest of the world, merit pay is part of the way people do their work and get compensated. I think the system is ripe for change. I think younger teachers are interested in merit pay. I think the whole compensation system has to be changed if we want the best and brightest to come into teaching, and that's certainly what we want.
But I mean, is the reason they're against it is because it's a union and they want everybody treated equally? Is that what it is?
I think that's part of it. The principal position is that merit pay would be destructive of cooperation in schools. And there's something that needs to be a concern there. On the other hand, it's possible to structure merit pay so that schools and teams within schools are subject to merit pay so that you can reward cooperation as well as individual effort.
How important is support of teachers to a politician, to a president?
Well, for a Democratic politician, Bob, it's very important to have those folks on his side. They provide some real help come campaigns. But we should also recognize the fact that President Obama right now has an enormous amount of goodwill throughout the country, but especially with his own party. And the folks at the NEA, at the AFT are politically savvy, Bob, and they get the fact that perhaps this president said some things that they didn't really like, but it doesn't do them any good in the short term or long run to strike back, and it's better for them to sort of take their medicine for now and work with him behind the scenes. Why start a sort of public conflagration when they can just work with this president behind the scenes? And so I think that's why they were so muted in their response to an issue that they really aren't terribly fond of.
Russ, the state of American education right now, as I understand it, from pre-K through 12, we run behind most of the developed countries of the world in math and science.
Well, we're middling. We are a very high-cost provider of mediocre outcomes is the way to overall summarize what we're dealing with.
So you think that the president was on the right track in this speech?
Oh, absolutely. We need to be better than we are, particularly in a world economy that's knowledge-based.
All right. I want to thank both of you. This is Washington Unplugged.